emotionally connecting to build valued relationships. Because once you build that emotional connection, referrals for life, business for life, connections for life, leadership for life, personal development for life. Yeah, I read your slides yesterday. I got it. I'm with you. So the challenge is we value productivity in business and everything over people. I'm here to change that today. So as we take a look at the reality, there we go. It can, whoops, I'm going backwards here, sorry. The key to what we need to do is build a common language. So what is a common language? It's about making sure we're all on the same page. It's also about negotiating through change and differing ideas and opinions. We're all different. None of us are the same. Is that right? I'm very different than Michael. I'm very different than Nancy. I'm very different to Anna. Anna's very different to me. Anna's very different to me. We're all different. I cannot communicate to you the way I want to be communicated to. I need to understand you and communicate the way you want to communicate. Does that make sense? We also have different needs. We have different wants. We all have different emotions. That's the reality. We're all different. And we need to understand that. So, as we take a look at the golden rule, how many of you have heard about the golden rule? It's been around for a long time. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Yes. The golden rule is treat others how they want to be treated. Right? It's a great rule. There's no better rule in ethics, in morals, values. There's no better rule. However, I will say, we generally make the mistake of assuming that others interact and think the same way we do. So, while the golden rule is important, I would like to move on to the platinum rule. And let me tell you a little story. How many of you have been to the United States? Raise your hand up high. It's a great place to visit. Yes. So, I come from the east side of the United States, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, New York. And if you've ever been there, you would notice that it's very fast-paced. It's very fast-paced. It's on the go. It's in your face. It's dressed to impress. It's tailored suits, because that's how we work. It's very, very business-like. So, in my 30s, I decided to move out west. And I was already in several years of business, dressed to impress, very fast-paced, and everything. I moved to the West Coast. I went to my first B&I meeting on the West Coast. Didn't go too well. It didn't go well at all, actually. No one talked to me, and here's why. I came into the meeting dressed to impress, very direct, very fast talking, and that's because that's how I was. However, that's not how Reno, Nevada was. Reno, Nevada was very casual, very slow talking. I don't even know what slow talking is. By the way, give a shout out to my translator back there, because I talk very fast. So I have this thing, I talk fast, you listen faster, and she translates faster. So it's very important that you guys know that. But that's me. That's where I come from. I come from a fast-paced environment. So when I moved to the West Coast, I had to learn not everyone was like me. I had to learn to adapt and be flexible to other people. I had to buy a polo shirt. I didn't even know what a polo shirt is. You guys have excellent B&I polo shirts, by the way. I cannot wear mine. So those red polos, whoever designed those, they're fantastic, by the way. But I had to learn how to wear polos. I had to wear shoes without heels. That didn't go well for me. So I still wore my heels, but I wore pants, and I wore polos, and I was more slow and very sit back. So I had to adapt. And that's what the platinum rule is. The platinum rule is treat others how they want to be treated. Now let's look at the difference again. The difference is the golden rule. It's all about who? Me. The platinum rule is all about who? You. And that's where we want to uncover. So I want you to think about your BNI meetings. I want to think about your business meeting, your leadership meetings, your team. For all the business owners in the room, do you know each team member's behavior? Do you know their style? Do you know what drives them? Do you know how to communicate? When I talk to Michael, me and Michael's like, hey, that's good. But when I talk to Nancy, hey Nancy, how's it going? You guys see what I'm talking about? You have to adapt to that. Okay? And that's what we're talking about. You, yourself. You have to look at yourself to be adapted to the other person. You have to communicate the way they want to be communicated to. So, the goal is, it's build awareness of other people's needs and fears. It's not just about how they communicate. What's their emotional like? What are they wanting? What are they needing? Those of you who have a team, those of you in BNI who sit in the meeting, do you know the person next to you, what they actually need so you can give them a proper referral? Do you know them? Do you know how to communicate all of that? And the second point is, the goal is to adapt to build mutually beneficial relationships. But I'm going to add another word in here. Emotional relationships. We want to build an emotional connection to have lifelong connections, lifelong relationships. So, how many of you heard of DISC? And I know in Vietnam you call it D-I-S-C, but I'm gonna say DISC, okay? Because that's what we really call it. Raise your hand up high if you've heard about DISC. Yeah? Well, at the end of this, I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to learn more about DISC and how are you going to incorporate it into your business, into your BNI meetings, and everything like that. But let me just give you a little overview, because I only have a short time. And I can be up here for at least 8 hours talking about this. So I only have a short time. So I'm going to give you an overview. So, when you take a look at DISC, you have D-I-S-C. D is for dominant, I is for influence, S is for steadiness, and C is for compliant. Now let's go into each one of those. When you go into dominant, that's me, by the way, if you haven't noticed. I like to be short, direct. I'm very competitive. But I will say, no one asked me to play football the other day. I would like to have played football the other day because I'm very competitive. I'm very daring. I skydive everywhere I go. I'm very adventurous. I'm very daring. I'm a problem solver, and I'm also results oriented. Now, D's, when you take a look at this, we're very direct. We're very guarded. We hold things close. We really don't get that emotional. Does that make sense? So we really hold things close, but we're very fast-paced. And we're very task-focused. So, if you're a D, raise your hand. Knowing this, yeah, we've got some D's in the room. And by the way, the reason why I asked you to shake hands with people kind of gave me an idea of who's all in the room. Because you know what I saw up here? I saw the D's go, morning. I saw the I's go, morning, let me just give you a hug. The S's are like, hi, good morning. And the C's are, good morning. Does that make sense? There's different types of people. So it's knowing and understanding what that is. But I love the D's in that one because they're like, morning, I really don't like that she did that, but I'm going to participate anyway. That's what I saw. The I's, whoops, finished going on. The D's, sorry, I was moving ahead. We're motivated, D's are motivated by control over the future, is that right? We like to be in control. We like achievements and having authority. We tend to prefer instant results. And we like to have an advantage over that connection and competition. So we communicate clearly, by the way. It's very clear-cut communication. How many of you know on your team, do you have I's on your team? Or B&I people, D's. How many D's is in your member group? Okay, now you kind of understand that sometimes they're not being argumentative, they're just being very direct. So they're not bad people. Does that make sense? You know, just because that's just their communication style. Now the influence, the I's, raise your hand if you're an I. You're very charming, you're confident, you love a good party, don't you? You like that party, you're very enthusiastic, and you're very inspiring. People want to hear you. They want to hear from you. They want to be like you, because you're very sociable. I's are also direct, but they're very open, whereas D's are very guarded. I's are very open. Would you guys say that's the truth, I's? Yes. They're like D's though, they're a faster pace. So not only are they open, they do like a faster pace. But where D's are task focused, the I's are people focused. So very important to acknowledge that. So, charming, confident, convincing, but the I's are motivated by connections. They're motivated by the people. They like to be creative. They like excitement for the future. I was doing a training in Vietnam several years ago, and I was doing a disc training, and some of you may remember this. The exercise was to throw me a birthday party. So for those of you who remember that training, so I had the D's in one group, I had the I's in another corner, the S's in a corner, and the C's in the corner. And the I's kept asking for more time. They kept asking for more time, like, we need more time to plan your birthday. They had colors and themes, music, bands, everything, because that's the way they do. So they're very expressive, by the way. So it's okay, by the way, if someone is standing next to you and they're talking with their hands. They're not angry with you. they're just very expressive. So know that, because this is how people communicate. Everyone communicates differently. Now, the S's. They are understanding. They're friendly. They are the best listeners. The best listeners. They're very patient. They get very angry with me, that's for sure. They're very patient, they're very sincere, they're very predictable. They like to do the same things. It's okay for them to do the same things. Know that. So when you walk up to an S, don't ask them to change. Don't ask them to do something that they don't want to do, because they will shut down. As you take a look at the S, they're very indirect, but they're open. They want to hear from you. They are people-focused, and they're slower paced. So the difference between the I, they're very similar to the I because they're open, they're people, but they work in a slower pace. They're going to make decisions very slowly. So let's talk about sales for a second. By the way, DISC is not just on communication. It goes into sales and leadership and everything. There's a lot more to this. But I'm going to use S as an example for sales. How many of you sell? We're all business owners, right? We do some selling, right? When you're working with an S, you can't get angry for them to take their time making a decision, because they take their time to make the decision. But here's the thing. Once they make their decision, they are your most loyal client. They are your most long-term client. So they may take a long time, and I'm not talking about a week, guys. I'm talking months. They may take months to make a decision, okay? Maybe a year. But keep talking to them and keep communicating with them, because once you have them on your team, they will be your most loyal team member. They will be your most loyal customer. You will have the longest customer. Does that make sense, guys? So you see and you understand really how people interact with each other. Now, they are very friendly. That's what I like to say. They are friendly because they are people-focused. So when you take a look at the S's, they're motivated by harmony. They're motivated by peace, safety, predictability. They like to be in a stable environment. So as a business owner, as a leader in BNI, as a leader in team, it's very important to understand the styles, especially for a C, because they will shut down pretty quickly, because they like stability. You can't keep giving them a whole lot of change. Does that make sense, team? Everybody say yeah?
Yeah.
All right, just want to make sure you guys are awake. They have and are very trusting. They are very trusting. Do not break their trust, because they are very trusting. And they're very sincere, they're very authentic, they're very genuine. Now, C's, you guys like numbers. You like questions. You like accuracy. You're very diplomatic. You like facts. So when you're working with a C, you have to give them the data. In order for them to make a good, sound decision, you have to give them data. You have to let them research. You have to give them the details. Now, us D's, do we have a problem with that? Yes, because they're going to say, just go get it done. They're going to know, well, who, what, where, how. What do I need to do? And also, Where's the budget? How much is this going to cost me? How am I going to get an ROI in this business? Right? They're very analytical. However, they're very compliant. They are your rule followers. They will play by the book and follow the rules. They're indirect, but they're guarded. They're like D's, they're guarded. They're not as open, they're guarded. Unlike a D, where D is fast-paced, C's are slower paced because they need the data. Does that make sense? And they're task-focused. So we just saw with the S's and the I's that they're who? People-focused. The D's and C's are task-focused. So when we take a look at it, is C's are motivated by what? Accuracy. Oops, I'm kind of going backwards there for a second. There's a fast button. Let's try that again. They like problem solving. They like quality solutions. Think about that. And they communicate very detailed, fact-based, in a very, very professional way. That's not how I like it. Does that make sense? I just want you to give me point A and B. But I know that I need to adapt to a C by saying, tell me what you want to tell me. I'm going to hear your bullet points. Did you guys just hear what I just said? I want them to give me bullet points. So they can give me the details, but put them in bullet points. Does that make sense, guys? So it's really kind of adapting to that. So, when we take a look at this, the C's are slower paced, task focused. The D's are faster paced, task oriented. The I's are faster paced, people oriented. And the S's are slower paced, people. You will see D's are direct and guarded. I's are direct and open. C's are direct and guarded, and S's are indirect and open. You guys see all the difference? So look at the I's and the S's. They're both people-oriented. The D's and C's are task-focused. Okay? The people are I's and S's, the D's and C's. The faster pace are on the left-hand side. The slower pace is over here. Why is this important? Why am I going over this? It's very simple. When you don't know behaviors, you are unable to build a quality team. And something that works for life. Does that make sense? I just worked with a client, it was last year, and I did this disc profile on their entire team. 22 people. They were a restaurant. So this restaurant, I had them all do 22 disc profiles. 21 of them, and by the way, they weren't getting very good Yelp reviews. That was a big thing. How do we increase and get better Yelp reviews? That's why they came to me. So I started off understanding their team first. Because in order for you to be a strong leader, you have to understand your team. So when I did the disc profile on their team, out of 22 people, 21 of them were D's. How do you think that business was ran? It was a restaurant. You had a D person greeting. Oh, welcome to my restaurant. Instead of, hey, welcome to ABC Restaurant. It's a great thing. Glad you're here. Does that make sense? There was no one. They had a D. The only D was the chef, property. They had really bad ratings on customer service. They had all D's as waiters and waitresses. Would you like me to take your order? Great. Would you like fries with that? Because we want to get to the point. Does that make sense, guys? So it's having a balance of all behaviors on your team. Knowing how many D's you have, how many I's you have, how many S's and C's that you have in your business. It's also very important in your BNI meetings, who you have in your meetings. So as a leader, as the president, as the membership committee, as the education coordinator, it's very important to understand who and what type of communication styles that you have so you can plan proper meetings. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So, give you a second here. I want you guys to take a look back at your BNI meetings. I want you just, who do you have in your in your meetings and say, oh, well, that person's a D now, that person's an I. I have a couple of C's and S's, because I guarantee you, you will run your meetings differently when you understand that. Does that make sense? It's very important. Now, it's not all about communication, by the way. It's all about fears and also understanding what their needs and their fears are. D, they need challenges to solve. They need authority. I's need social relationships. They need a friendly environment. The S's, they need systems, teams, stability, environment. C's need to follow rules. They need data. Their biggest fears are D's, we don't like to be taken advantage of. And we don't like to have lack of control. The I's are, I don't want to be left out. I have FOMO. That's basically it. And loss of social approval. The S is all that change. They don't want all that change. They want that stability and security. And C, it's the loss of accuracy. So it's really understanding that. So, communication styles, what their needs and fears are, and then also, we're going to tack on emotions. So it's just not communication. It's communication along with understanding their needs and their fears. It's also understanding what their emotions are. D's are emotional, anger and impatience. I's, they're optimistic, they're trust. S is patience, they have no expression. And that's okay. And C is they have a fear and concern. So, are you guys starting to see that it's just not about just their behavior? It's a multiple of things. So, when we move on to, just waiting for this to come up, it's all about adaptability, adapting to others, like I had mentioned. And it's very important that you have to be flexible and willing. When you take a look at this, when you start to recognize and understand each other's behavioral and emotional differences, when you don't understand that, you're at a risk of frustration. You're at a risk of confusion. This is where miscommunication comes into play, and also a misunderstanding. How many of you have had conflict in your BNI meetings and or in your team because of a misunderstanding? It happens all the time. Raise your hand. If you're not raising your hand, I'm telling you, there we go. Because it's all about recognizing and understanding each other. If not, that's what's going to happen. So adaptability is important for successful relationships. It's important to understand that no one style is more adaptable than the other. I may make fun of our D's and C's, etc., but there's no wrong behavior, by the way. Ideally, when we talk about adapting, you want to focus on how do I adapt to be all styles? How can I become a high disc? Now, you can take the disc assessment and it'll never say I'm a high disc, because that's not what it is. Adaptability is when you're speaking to a D, you adapt to a D. When you're speaking to an I, you adapt to the I. When you're speaking to an S, you adapt to an S. As a leader, as a business owner, as a spouse, As a parent, it's very important to know that it's your role to adapt to the person that you are speaking to. You have to be flexibility in your willingness, and you have to have aptitude as your capability. You have to be capable of doing it. And when I say that, it's very hard because being capable of becoming a high disc takes a lot of work. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to, as soon as I walk off this stage, you're going to say, great, I'm going to be a high disc. It takes work. It takes a lot of personal development. So it's very important for you to be willing to do that, for you to be capable. So adaptability, we've already talked about this. You guys will get the slides, by the way. You guys will have it. I love that you guys are taking pictures. Let me just do that with you. Thank you very much. So it's very important to really kind of understand that adaptability. So if you are going to take anything away from me, it's all about the platinum rule. So let me tie it all together because I'm running out of time. I am doing a breakout session on how assessments can grow your business this afternoon. So for those of you who are interested in that, please join me this afternoon. So for today, at this moment, I'm going to tie this all together. So when we actually work, there we go. Effective communication, by knowing behaviors, it creates tangible results. It creates client retention. It creates everything you desire as a business owner, as a leader, but more important, it fosters culture. When you have a team, whether it's your members of your BNI team, whether it's your team in your family, whether it's your team in your business, it's about fostering that culture that you're desiring, that you're building. So I ask you right now, what are you building? What are you building? What are you desiring? And communication is part of that. How are you going to be a strong leader, a strong business owner, a strong husband, a strong wife, a strong mother or father? We all have different roles, is that right? And communication is a huge part of being the best human being possible. Fostering communication allows you to be the best version of yourself. So, what's next? How are you going to do this? Well, first of all, those of you who have never taken a DISC report, I highly encourage you to open an account. As you saw yesterday, we have partnered with Michael Ho and his team. They are now a global affiliate to offer assessments for you here in Vietnam, assessments for you in Asia, wherever you are today. But we do have assessments to help you with that. So the team will help you set up your account. Once they do that, they will show you how to take your own assessment. They will show you how to incorporate it in your team, how to build that culture, how to become that strong leader. Because one thing I'm going to start off with, the very first thing I said today, is we're all here to have business for life, personal development for life, leadership for life, to be engaged, to build emotionally connected relationships, to create the business that we desire for those referrals life. Is that correct? It's your time now to know what the next step is. What do you need to do now to be able to have the culture that you desire in your personal and your professional life? So I hope I was able to give you something today. I had a great time, so thank you for inviting me here. And thank you for allowing me to be on stage. I will be around if you guys want to have any questions or whatever.